texting my mom. She got bills this week. And I got the paper for it.
Oh, does she live around here?
Oak Creek.
She gets the bills or you get the bills? She gets the bills and then gives them?
Yeah, we haven't transitioned to the electronic debt. So we're going to senior part. And my dad used to be able to go that way last month, so. Yeah, very good. Yeah. 92 years old, so. 91.
Still paying his bill? Not bad life. Made it to the end, huh?
At the end, he had to explain about, my mom had to write the check, so she couldn't write the check.
I say we don't write checks anymore, we do electronic.
Well, my dad was not.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Town of Delafield Board of Supervisors meeting for Tuesday, October 11th. If you'd all rise and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mr. Green, would you do a roll call, please?
Supervisors Miller,
Present.
Granick,
Present.
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 Present. This is the citizen comment section of our agenda. Public comments from citizens regarding items on or not on the agenda. The board may not engage in a discussion with the citizen making the comments. Individual presentations are limited to 3 minutes for a total of 30 minutes, and citizens shall follow the rules set forth in section 2.04 sub 1 sub D of the town code. Is there anybody who'd like to speak on any subject? If you would, just come to the podium and give Dan the little slip of paper that was at the entrance.
Yes, again, my name is Alan Nepper, N16 W29838 Brookstone Circle, which is in the High Point subdivision. Would like to speak again on the ordinance that would change the Thomas Farm that has been put forward by the Planning Commission. And actually, I've got my notes from speaking at the Planning Commission, and I thought, well, I'll just go down the same set of notes, because really my concerns as a neighbor has not changed. We still don't see lot sizes that reflect the surrounding communities on all four sides. We still don't see potential housing sizes that reflect the community on all four sides. We're still far, far away from, I think, what some people had said would be an ideal number of units, somewhere around 150, 20,000 foot square lots. One more time, it does not seem that it's responsible on the part of the town board. This has been a long discussion, and I'm sure everybody would like it to be over. My concern is if this is passed, then we go right back at it every time a plan comes forward for whatever development is going to happen on the land. My last concern is that I hope that everyone sitting here is representing the town of Delafield and not Waukesha County. I have a big concern that moving forward on this, we're going to be bullied, for lack of a better expression, by Waukesha County to change housing size to smaller size, lots to smaller size, multifamily, et cetera. But again, I appreciate you listening. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else care to speak?
Hi, my name is Cindy Duco. I live at N22W28692 Lewis Avenue. We have the longest addresses in the world. A lot of things have been said. We've been going over this for a really long time, and I think that the town has made itself pretty clear on where we stand and what we think we should have there. I don't know why we would change what the town is about to accommodate someone who's selling their property. I'm concerned that whatever we do here is going to set precedent. We have other land in the property. Lloyd Williams still has an awful lot of land. The Bryn Farm is still there, which someday could be developed, and I don't want to set precedent to do that. One of the comments made at the meeting the other night was that with this study, and I apologize, I don't remember who said it, with this study, we're going to get a water, or with this offer, we would get a water and a traffic study. Well, we can ask anybody who wants to develop the property to do that, both those studies. And those are two things that really concern me. When you come down Maple Avenue, the frontage road, past Glen Cove on any night at 4 or 5 o'clock, you're stuck at that stop sign forever. So what happens then when the traffic gets so bad? And coming out of Glen Cove, we need a roundabout. Roundabouts used to be about $800,000 to $1 million. I think they're up about 40% right now. And I'm going to bet you guys don't have an extra million laying around in your traffic budget. So who would pay for that? That's a concern I have. I have concerns also about the water. That's an awful lot of use. OAW uses more water than they said they were going to use, and that still has not been addressed. I don't know if we can address it, but that's concerning. And I also worry that this is going to cause some blasting, and there were people that had well problems after the last time there was blasting. So there's just an awful lot of unknowns, and I think that this has gone on for a while, and we probably need to dial this back, and let's do what the citizens are asking you to do. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
I'm Denise Reese at North 18, West 29054 Gulf Ridge South, and I wrote everything down, and I'm going to speak fast so that you don't have to give me that obnoxious buzzer. As you know, I've been against a high-density development from the beginning. Since the last meeting, I spent a lot of time seriously listening to the other side and considering the arguments in favor of this ordinance. As a result, I'm even more adamant that this ordinance as it stands is not right for a town. We are told last week that people were in favor of the project but are too afraid to speak. In my conversations, I found only people who were in favor of development, but development that would blend with the already existing neighborhood. And why is it that you think the rest of us speak here without fear? I'm speaking despite my fear because I love Delafield and I know we can do better. Approving this ordinance as it stands for fear that something worse might come along is not going to develop Delafield in a way that will last for 100 years or more. The article I sent all of the board members about a Milwaukee neighborhood that has flourished for over 100 years pointed out that what made the difference in this neighborhood were deed restrictions that include single-family homes with the minimum cost, greater setbacks and berm heights, and wider lots that provided for a roomier feel and lower density. The article concluded, harsh and exclusive as the rules might seem, a century later, this neighborhood remains stunning. The restrictions worked. In other words, the exact things that we have been asking you for have been done before with great success in the heart of a diverse neighborhood. Why would anyone think that quality needs to be sacrificed for the sake of greater diversity? We already have square foot minimums for lots and homes in the town that have worked well for all of these years. Please apply these to this development. We'll all go away if you do. I have spoken to some developers and attorneys who say that despite what you say or think about this ordinance not setting new precedent, it will, and people will sue, and probably win. Communities attract others to move there by showing a good face as people pass through. What will the people of the future see as they pass this development on I-94, our biggest eye? That's now up to you. Please, don't dismiss us, hear us, and don't presume we don't know what we're talking about. Unfortunately, I don't feel that you will take the time to consider what I said here tonight. I think you're going to vote this through because you already decided it's the best you can do. That would be a terrible shame. It would even be more of a shame if you voted through thinking you could stop it down the road somewhere. Once passed, it will be pushed through, no matter what the consequences to the community. It'll be like a train wreck. At
Okay,
least
thank you,
those of
ma'am.
us who gave a
Thank you,
good
ma'am.
fight will know that
Ma'am,
we
thank
tried as
you.
best as we could. It's a foolish endeavor indeed.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else care to speak on any subject?
Hello, Rick McKenna, N2029404, Oakton. My wife and I moved out to the town of Delafield 2 years ago. We moved here for a reason, lower density. We came from Elm Grove and Brookfield area where there was a higher density. We came here for a reason. I've looked at the documents, and what concerns me most is I don't think that the proposed ordinance is true to the intent of the town of Delafield. I'm a realist, I'm a pragmatic person. I understand development is coming, it's in my backyard, I know what's coming. It's okay, I get it. The type of development that could come as a result of this is what concerns me. The current ordinance throughout the town of Delafield is 20,000 square feet minimum lots. We're going to 10,000. During the planning commission discussion, there was well, this isn't setting a precedent. This isn't binding. We get to change it later. If that's the case, then let's make it 20. You can back it down to 10 or 15 if you feel you need to. Let's set the precedent consistent with the current code as it stands right now. It will be binding upon us. There will be expectations that you comply with the ordinance as passed. So that's one of my strong positions here is don't, using your language, violate the spirit or intent of the zoning code of the town of Delafield. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else?
Christine Hansen, N8W29141 Windriff Lane. I've sat and listened to this discussion for 4 years silently in the back while everybody else got up here and broke down the numbers. And throughout that time, we've talked about residential, recreational, responsible, and I'm going to throw out there one more R, and that's respect. Respect for the land and respect for the electorate. If you want to know how to not respect the land, drive west on I-94 out to the old Pabst Farms. And if you want quarter-acre lots and you want 0.4-acre lots, there are a ton of them out there on that old gorgeous farmland. But I moved here 19 years ago because as a former farm girl, I like the rural nature of what was here in the town of Delafield. And if you want to know how to steward the land, look south of the Thomas Farm, south of I-94, at what we did with Shepherd's Pass. Not a single lot less than 1 acre. Thankfully, part of the Williams Farm has been stewarded and saved along Bryn so that I can see horses and cows out there. But even the condo that went north of my property, still 18 units on 29 acres with tons of green space. That respects the land. If you respect the land, lots less than 20,000 square feet are not something you will vote for. If you respect the electorate, this ordinance, the Thomas Farm ordinance, is not something you will approve. We have been telling you and telling you and telling you for years we do not want this in the town of Delafield, because we all live here for residential, recreational, responsible. This is still a representative democracy, and we would like you to hear us. And if you hear us, you will vote no to this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else care to speak? Okay, if not, then we'll close the citizen comments section of the agenda, and we'll move forward to approval the minutes of the September 27th Town Board meeting.
I will motion to approve the minutes from September 27th for the town board.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of September 27th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Action on vouchers submitted for payment. There are no budget adjustments, so we'll move on to authorization of accounts payable and payroll.
For accounts payable, I make a motion to approve payments of checks 66061 through 66064 and 66066 through 66081 in the amount of $127,907.80. And for payroll, a motion to approve the payrolls dated October 14th, 2022, in the amount of $14,652.37.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second to approve the accounts payable payroll as submitted. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to communications. The town and the town supervisors have received several emails in opposition to the Plan Development District ordinance from the residents of the town. We've also received an email from Rob Thomas, who is in opposition to the Plan Commission's motion to reduce the density from 250 units to 230 units. The town also received a petition in opposition to the Plan Commission's motion from 28 residents of the surrounding neighbors. And with that topic, Supervisor Miller has requested to make a statement.
I'm aware that my husband, John Miller, signed a protest petition. I had no prior knowledge my husband was going to sign it. I did not sign the petition myself or authorize the use of my name on the protest petition. I wish to have my name officially removed from the protest petition, and I believe I can be fair and impartial and decide on the matter based solely upon the information that's provided to me at the public hearing.
Thank you, Supervisor Miller. The petition was reviewed by the town engineer, the town attorney, and the administrator. It was concluded that the petition does not trigger the requirements of a 3/4 vote of the town board for passage. It does not meet the requirements of the town's ordinance of a protest petition. We have sent an email and mailed letters to the 3 residents who circulated and presented the petition. The letter explains the various deficiencies in the petition. That letter will also be part of the minutes of this meeting and will be part of the public record. Okay? Moving on to new business. Before we open up,
Unfinished business first.
I'm sorry, what?
Unfinished business.
Oh, I'm sorry, unfinished business. That's right. We have a discussion, possible action on a code enforcement option for the property located at N13 W28907 Silvernail Road. Mr. Green, do you want to express the good news?
So the building's been taken down finally after 3+ years. So the contractor will set up the final inspection with the building inspector in the coming weeks. So I would ask that this item be removed from the agenda permanently.
I got one question regarding that property. There are still some sheds on that property. I know that wasn't the intent, initial intent. I mean, that the intent was to get rid of the burned out building, and that's down, and I'm satisfied with that, but just.
I'll follow up with the building inspector tomorrow and see if there's any prior or necessary action to be taken.
Would you like a motion to remove it?
Hold on one second. Last time I drove by, there was still some dumpsters out front. Have those been removed? I
They
probably
weren't
went
there
by.
yesterday.
They were there yesterday? Okay. I just wanted to make sure that those weren't going to linger before we took it off.
Motion to permanently remove this item from the agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to remove this item from the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, new business. Discussion and possible action on the recommendation from the Planning Commission to approve the adoption of ordinance 2022-04, an ordinance to create section 17.045.r entitled the Planned Development District Number 1 of the Town of Delafield Municipal Code. Now, before we open discussion, following Robert's Rules of Order and correct procedure, I would like to make a motion, or, well, I would like to ask the board members to discuss, to ask any questions of the staff, including Dan, Tim, or Kevin. If anybody has any remaining questions that they want to address to the staff regarding the ordinance.
I had a technical question that the staff can probably answer. It's about section 10 and section 13, I believe. One is titled Open Space for Development Site. The other is also deals with open space for each lot. Can you just explain to me? I apologize, I don't know the answer to this, but what are these two open space requirements, and how are they different? I guess, what are they applying to?
Sure. I'll answer the easy one first, which is the one that's the open space per lot. And so that is an open space, just by definition in our zoning code, is in essence green space. It's area that is not occupied by, let's say, a house footprint, a patio, a deck, a driveway, a sidewalk, things like that. So everything else, planting beds, green grass, and vegetation, that's all considered what we consider open space. And we have in our code, for each lot that is created, residential lot, we have an open space requirement that's required on each lot. So that's no different than what we have in other categories. And so you calculate that on a per lot basis when the building permit comes in for construction on that home.
Okay, so section 13 is consistent with how we
Yes.
normally do things.
Yes.
Okay.
So the other one is basically, it's in regards to the actual site itself. So I'm going to just use an example that if the 8 lots that are potentially going to be developed off of Crooked Creek Court, way up in the northwest corner of this particular property, if that would come in as a subdivision, as a whole, then they would have to have a certain percentage of that development that has to remain open space. Or if a condominium type development comes into play, you've got your condominium buildings, you got your driveways, you got your, if you have some hard surface space for play areas, the rest of it is green space or open space. And so that's what that percentage deals with. Those other areas outside of the lot that are part of the more specific development that's being created. And there might be multiple, if you want to think of it as multiple phases or multiple developments within the Thomas property if this moves forward. Does that
That
make it
does.
a little bit
So
clearer?
one is addressing more generally a specific spot, and one is for lack of a better term, a yard, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so on a yard, I mean, there's a lot of open space. It's a normal required 60-70%, and then each yard is required to have another set of open space based off of.
Each development would have what, in a lot of subdivisions, they're called common open spaces or outlots.
Okay.
And that's what those refer to.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Tim or Kevin or Dan?
Not sure if this is specific as far as Tim, but kind of a run through, I think it would be because zoning wise, right? Run through I've got a couple bullet points here that is a pass scenario, fail scenario. I want to just make sure that this is correct.
Okay.
All right. So if the ordinance were to pass, it would allow for a max of 230 residential units. Would mandate the testing for traffic, water, and sewer. Right? Testing would take place a site plan would be proposed, adjusted for any test results that might have to be corrected, right? If a test were not to fail, right? That,
Can we just, what do you mean by test? Can you?
Water test, sewer test.
water test, sewer test, traffic test, studies, okay?
Studies, yes, okay.
Site plan would be proposed, adjusted for any study results that would need to take place, or the results would come in, right? From there, a site plan would be proposed to the town board based on the new adjusted numbers, quantity of units per the study results, correct?
Plan Commission, I believe.
Plan commission, okay? And then to the town board.
Yes.
And the plan commission and the board would also need to approve any site plan from there that would come in with any adjusted study results. Am I missing anything there? Correct?
That is correct.
All with public hearings.
Yeah, the only qualification I would say is you talk about adjusting. So if the sewer study came back and said there wasn't sufficient capacity for 230, there was capacity for 210, the developer would have two options: reduce the number of units to 210 or spend money and expand the sewer. So at least with respect to sewer, because you can always expand capacity, there might be the resolution where the developer spends the money to increase the capacity so that the 230 number can be met. But for the other ones, unless they were to put in, again, I think for water and traffic, I think your analysis is correct.
And Kevin, this document delineates that the developer is responsible for the cost of that.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Which is not,
And it has to be done before the rezoning even occurs. It'll stay agricultural zoning until those studies are completed to the satisfaction of the Town Planning Commission and the Town Board.
am I correct that that's a rather unique provision for the town that we have?
We have nothing else like it anywhere.
And then in the opposite, right? Ordinance fails, okay? Correct me if I'm wrong on any of this stuff, right? Back 50 acres designated for residential, right? Essentially, that's the kind of upper portion up around Elmhurst and Oakton, right? Already designated residential would be eligible for anything R1 through R3, including R3 PUD, with no water, sewer, or traffic study required, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Front 100 acres, so the section surrounded by Glen Cove Road, Gulf Road, Elmhurst, right, is designated mixed use currently, which means it could be rezoned to any conforming land use, R1 through R3, R3 PUD, B1 through B3, M1 with 80% green space, my understanding, also with no water, sewer, traffic study required, correct?
I'll just clarify one thing. The M1 is a 65% green space.
Okay.
There's a B3 district, which is Business Park District. That's right, currently is at 80% green space.
And
Okay.
which one would it be? It would be M1?
The B3.
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 And-
So
but
it's
it-
a business, it's called a Business Park District.
Sure.
It's a commercial, okay.
Right.
But the M1, which is an industrial district, would be a 65% open space on that.
Correct. But again, because of its current designation as mixed use, as long as whatever came to us, like, there's not a recourse to stop that from going to any one of those particular uses if that were the case, correct?
The owner of the property could make a request for rezoning on that. The rezoning has to be in conformance with our land use plan. So, for example, an M1 industrial district is an allowable use in the mixed-use land use district, which is on the property right now. Okay, there's still the process to rezone the land.
Sure.
Okay, so if a development came in at the time of plan commission, we would require them to bring in a site plan or some kind of conceptual plan at the time of rezoning, so we know what's going to come in before we rezone it typically. And that's typically the way we handle that. We get a site plan, it's usually conceptual, and then we decide if we want to proceed forward with a rezoning on that.
No studies, though.
No required study at that time. I mean,
What about conditional uses? Are they,
I got
oh, you got.
okay,
3 more
okay.
quick bullet points, and then
I was
I'll
just
let you take
trying
it
to
away. No
explain
worries. So, if in this scenario, ordinance fails, and it stayed all residential, right? So essentially, if you're talking max capacity residential R3 PUD. The potential for this is 250 plus units on what's developable land, correct?
It's plus, yeah.
Right, and that portion in particular also, no water, no traffic, no sewer study would be required for that, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So obviously, again, the bullet point on that one being potential of non-residential development on the front 100 acres is certainly a possibility. Okay? Again, I'm just making sure we're all real clear
Okay,
on
yeah.
what it is, ordinance pass, ordinance fail, right? And if I'm missing anything, feel free to, those are the bullet points I have, so.
Joe, I had done the same math on the 114 acres of developable land at 20,000 square feet and had 250 as well. So I'm glad you asked about that. And I was quite pleased to see the Planning Commission to move it to 230 because I felt that was an important marker to go from 250 to 230 so that we're under that 20,000 square foot number. Because I think that gives us less density than the perhaps alternative and is better for us.
More green space.
I have concerns about, it was raised, I think Al said it, concerns about the county messing with this. I'm actually more concerned about the state, to be
Well,
honest
here,
with you.
this section is just for questions to the town staff. This is not open discussion. So
I was just going to give a long intro to a question.
I'd like you to do it. Anybody else have questions for the town staff, or do you want to explain?
I have questions for the town staff, if I
Go ahead.
a lot of the emails and a lot of the concerns since the Plan Commission meeting and during the Plan Commission meeting has been the reduction in the minimum lot size from 20,000 square feet to 15 and 10,000 square feet. And in my time of sitting on this side of the table as a Plan Commission member, I was educated and, taught, hey, we get smaller lot sizes, we cluster them, we get more green space. Is that the thinking of the staff in driving this ordinance the way that it was written?
I would say that there's, with any development, that's been the general, the Plan Commission over the last 25 years has had that in their mind as far as clustering units together on smaller lots for the green space. That has been kind of the way, the thought of the Plan Commission throughout, like I say, for a long time. That's why we see subdivisions that are done as planned unit development with open space around, the sides of it. Usually you can see it along some of the roads adjacent to the subdivision where they have significant open space along it, where there will be no development. I mean, it's deed restricted in the development restrictions and on the plat that you can't develop those lands. So that's been the philosophy all along.
So it's not a departure of the philosophy of the Plan
No.
Commission for the last 30 years to.
No, and I mean, obviously, the intent is to try to maximize as much open space as we can on this development. We have areas that are pretty much set up for it with the environmental corridor for open space to allow that to be preserved.
Tim, I have a question.
Sure.
In the section that's called building location in this ordinance, I see duplex or four-family condos.
Yes.
Can you tell me, or could you guys tell me why this is part of this ordinance? I just want to understand where that comes from, I guess. What's the story behind that type of building?
Sure, I mean, state law
I'm gonna let
regulates
Kevin-
condos more than the town does. And to be honest, any residential subdivision can be developed as a condominium. And what that really means is there is no lot size, right? The lot size here would be 150 acres. So condominiums are permitted and protected by state statute. They're a viable residential development. And that's why we don't focus as much on lot size as we do on density, because we can still regulate density in a condominium development. And so even though condominiums, duplexes, and fourplexes are allowed under this ordinances, larger condominiums are not. which is another give, because they could, under state law, otherwise propose a 16-unit condominium. But we're not going to allow that under this ordinance. But more importantly, the density calculations, the 230 units, includes the condominium units.
Okay, thank you.
I think, just to go along with that, is part of the creation of this ordinance through time, and more recently when we had the Newman Company come in and provide a site plan that showed duplex condominiums out there. And so that kind of came into play as to what potentially could be out there. And if there's more units that are condominium units that are close together, that are it's 2 units together, you're gonna get more open space by doing that. If you have fourplex condominiums, which is requested by the applicant to be the owner, is to have fourplex as I'm sorry, not, that came from Newman, I think. I'm sorry, it came from Newman to say, can we have the option of four-unit condominiums so that we can provide even more open space out there, that's kind of how those got put into place. It's kind of been a process to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Ed, were you finished with your?
Oh, I've got
Finish
one more
my
question.
Go ahead.
I believe you, Kevin, mentioned at the last meeting concern about it remaining a commercial district based off of the state changing zoning regulations, specifically a bill that passed the assembly that would allow 16 units per acre. Am I correct on that?
If the land is designated as commercial use, which the mixed-use portion of this parcel would be, the state law would allow a minimum of 16 units per acre.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else before we move on?
One last question here, and Kevin, this is just from a comment you made at the Planning Commission. It's about 57 minutes into the meeting. The quote I took on you here is, if we have a sewer issue, we reduce the number of units, right? So I guess now we talked about also there's the ability for the developer to be able to correct that.
Assuming that the sewer department allows them and that there's a practical solution, if it's changing a pipe size or something like that, or adding a lift station, it would be up to the developer to either pay for additional capacity or reduce the number of units.
Okay.
But our units are still at 230, right?
Maxed at
Yes,
230.
yes.
They're maxed at 230, which
The
we're all
sewer
pretty
capacity
confident
would
8 of them are
support a
going to
lot
be
more
in
than
the
that to protect them.
single-family home section. Anything else? Okay, so at this time, to go into full discussion, I would like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 2022-04, an ordinance to create section 17.045.r entitled Planned Development District Number 1 of the Town of Delafield Municipal Code, and for the board to have full and open discussion. So the chair would look for a second to that
I will
motion.
second that so that we can hear from other board members on this. I've been waiting 4 years to hear from other board members on this one, so.
Okay. Now we can have full discussion before any action.
Great.
Open discussion.
So I will keep quiet. Like I said, I look forward to hearing from Supervisor Michael, Supervisor Wolfley, and Supervisor Miller regarding this. Everybody's heard me at the Plan Commission over the last 4 years, so this is your opportunity to discuss, and I will interject as needed.
Just kick us off.
I can start.
All right.
So I joined this board 6 months ago. Been listening to a lot of people before and after I joined this board about this plan. I'm here to represent the residents of the town. And I don't think this is where we should be as far as what's in this ordinance. I think we're rushing it. I don't think we're ready to move forward on this. I just don't think it's right. And I think we can do much better than this.
How?
By talking about it amongst each other like we are right now. And Obviously, everybody has been listening to the residents of the town. We know what they want. And I personally don't feel comfortable moving forward on this.
Do you have a goal? Do you have a specific thing about this that bothers you?
If you're thinking 150 acres, the number that pops in my head is 150 units. Yeah, but I'm not in the construction industry. I'm not qualified to design a property this big, as far as how it fits. Okay. A lot can be said about this, obviously, but I just don't think this is right at all. I don't want to see multifamily.
Neither do I, and I'm very
think this
glad
is
that
wrong.
it's been taken out of it. So I really appreciate the Plan Commission's efforts to remove that sort of the rental portion of the multifamily and remove it just to condos. So thank you for your efforts on that.
Anybody else care to speak?
Yeah,
Can I just finish by saying one more thing?
yeah, absolutely.
We're talking, Magley. Talk all you want, man.
No, and I think.
As
I
Ed said,
love-
we've been waiting a long time to talk about this.
I know. I really want to get done with this too. I think it's been lasting way too long. But that's not a reason why this should be pushed through. I just started. So 6 months ago, I joined the board, and I just think this should fit better in the community, and let's stick with our 3 Rs. Absolutely. So.
Yeah, I have, I'm the second next junior member of the board. Became sworn on to the board April of 19, and kind of got rolling with this just as that initial kind of proposal came out, right? So where were we when I started on this, or where it was when I took on running for the board, right? We were still talking at, this was before they had down to 450 something units. This was back when they were proposing far more than that. Residential senior living's potential for up to almost 5.6 units an acre. Right, it's gone through iterations from there. Removed several parts that were issues along the way. And right now, at where we're at, maxing out at 230 units, all residential unit owned, with approximately 1.5 units an acre. I've talked to a lot of you, on the phone, gotten a lot of emails from people who aren't here, got a lot of calls from people who aren't here, got a lot of calls and comments and input from everybody. And there's two things that stand out from what everyone wants to do that holds consistent, right? I've heard unit proposals to 5-acre unit lots for people who are totally fine with 300 units. I've heard everything in between. I've heard people who want to keep it a farm, right? There's a huge gamut of what people are looking to do with this property, would like to see happen to this property. But the two things that have all held consistent with requests and people's ask is that it all stays residential and that there's testing to support the residential. Okay, that's the two things that I'm consistently hearing and consistently heard over this entire process. I'm not really sure. I mean, this keeps me up at night, right? I live on Glen Cove Road. I pass this property at least twice a day. My family moved there when I was 8 years old. I bought the house for my parents, moved myself and my 3 kids there 5 years ago. Almost 5 years ago, almost to the day. This keeps getting referenced, right? Residential, recreational, and responsible. The residential happens to be number 1 in the motto too, right? And when we look at what we go through, or what is potentially here, if this doesn't pass, also is not residential. And again, is continued to be the theme that everyone has asked for, is residential and testing. When you look at residential and being responsible, I think if you're looking at residential and responsibility, we're trying to thread a needle here, right, of keeping this residential, but being responsible with the residential that goes on there. If this doesn't pass, and they end up with 250 plus units there, they don't have a requirement to test for water, to test for sewer, or to test for traffic, right? And passionately, far before there was concerns about the 10,000 and 15,000 square foot acre lots, or foot lots, passionately, people one after one after one, and myself included, got up there with the concern about water testing, sewer testing, and traffic testing. And that's where my dilemma is, right? Do I want to see 230 units there? Not really, right? But do I want to see a Orthopedics Associate of Wisconsin there and a big stretch of blacktop and streetlights? Or do I want to see a church with a big stretch of blacktop and streetlights? Or do I want to see
$600,000 homes, right?
$600,000 homes with kids and trees and swing sets?
How did you feel about senior living?
Go ahead.
No, I mean,
Well, we're having a discussion,
Yeah,
right?
go
So,
ahead.
thank you.
so, you know, I mean, that's my dilemma, and that's the crossroads that I sit at, right? The questions, there's some questions, we've got plenty of emails, right? Jim Frett is not here, but well-known, right? Of everyone who is not on the board, he's probably the best educated about this stuff. He's here at every single one of these meetings. He's got an email that came to the board, right? with several questions in it. And I think we can at least address some of these. And again, continue the conversation, right? But at least address some of these questions that he's got, right? He's talking about over 30 years, the subdivision's developed, right? Average 0.41 units an acre. You know, I don't know exactly the math he's talking about there. I know that definitely includes Dover Bay. That's well in mountain septic, right? That's a significantly different deal we're talking about there. And we're looking at, so he asks, the current ordinance allows for 1.5 units an acre. Why do they believe it's okay to be 3 to 4 times the density of the prior town developments? I mean, I can tell you why, when we're looking at this, what we're dealing with here, right, is those other properties were not already designated mixed-use properties. Those were already residential properties, right? There's a hurdle here that we have to overcome that is not a residential designation, which is already the problem, right? When you look at where a lot of this comes from, that's I would consider the starting point of this problem, right? And when you look again at if this gets developed at a 20,000 square foot lot density of R3 PUD, you're potentially looking at more units per acre than what this ordinance has. So if we have less ordinances or less units with testing of all the things that people want, again, that's the crossroad I'm at. That's where it gets, where I'm torn between two decisions here, so.
You had a question, Maggie?
Can it be 230 condos?
Right. We're not taking
No
questions.
comments, please.
What was your question?
Did you have a question?
Sorry, no, how did you feel about senior living idea?
I mean, that's not ideal. Again, I mean, my preferred, if the preferred plan on this is like, I remember Brookstone Circle was there, High Ridge wasn't there, none of those subdivisions were there when we moved in, right? I remember driving past that thing and going, oh, when are they gonna build houses there? Right? I remember asking my parents that, right? You know, I've never driven by it and been like, oh gee, I wonder when they're gonna build senior living there, right? I've never driven by it and been like, oh, man, could use another Orthopedics Associates of Wisconsin building here. You know, I mean, it's a beautiful building, but that's not a great spot to stick an Orthopedics Associates of Wisconsin building.
Well, and I think the irony too is that I recall when, you know, Brookstone Circle was being built there at the time, that was very controversial to the neighbors and to the neighborhood because it was, you know, right along the freeway. It was smaller lot sizes. It was smaller than what was there. And people, you know, had a lot of consternation about that at the time too. And, you know, at the public hearing, you know, it was pointed as an example of, you know, what should be there. So, I mean, I have gotten a lot of emails saying, you know, I'm out to destroy the character of the town of Delafield, and, you know, if people want smaller lots, they should move to the city. That's what cities are for. And I would be the first person to say, I love the town of Delafield. Yeah. I love the town of Delafield. I've been serving the town of Delafield for a long time. I have a certain passion for the town of Delafield, and, you know, I'm gonna be the first person to stand up to say, you know, if we're gonna destroy the character of the town of Delafield, I'm not for it. You know, but I don't believe that this ordinance is going to destroy the character of the town of Delafield. You know, as Joe mentioned, you know, if you go back to the, you know, March 23rd, 21, you know, when this was at the Plan Commission, when, you know, the original, we started working on this ordinance, you know, it was at 484 units. We got it down to 410. And just take the emotion out of it. Just look at the math. In March 21 at 410 units, we were at 2.7 units per acre, okay? And if you read the minutes, Chairman Troy asked me, you know, so where do you think it should be? And I said 250, 225. You know, well, today we're at 230. We're at 1.5 units per acre. And I think, you know, because, you know, we've heard from the rooftops, you know, every public hearing, you know, I mean, the notion that we haven't listened to the residents is ludicrous. Because what we have now is we don't have multifamily, we don't have senior uses, we don't have light industrial, we don't have commercial. We have a purely residential ordinance that, in my mind, is residential, recreational, and very responsible, because in all the emails and all the comments, it's density, 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 which, you know, anybody who's been through development, you know, everybody's always going to hammer on density. You're never going to be low enough to satisfy everybody. But after that, it's, well, we're worried about the water. We're worried about the traffic. We're worried about, you know, the sewer capacity of LPSD. This ordinance, this overlay district, gives you a residential subdivision that provides the safety valve and the assurances that there needs to be a traffic study, and it's a traffic impact study. There needs to be a sewer study, that there needs to be the water study, that we need to make sure that the aquifer can support whatever is on there. And we're either going to reduce the density, or the developer, as Chairman Fitzgerald said, has the opportunity to, you know, make the necessary improvements on their nickel to satisfy those three concerns to the Plan Commission's and the town board's, you know, liking. And I think, you know, we've worked very hard. We've worked very long on this. You know, development and change, it's very emotional. And I get that. I mean, I of all people get that. I have houses where in my backyard where there used to be, you know, corn stalks and soybeans. Like I get it. You know, it's hard, it's challenging. And, you know, I've sat up here through, you know, for a long time as we've gone through, you know, different developments, and nobody's ever happy, nobody's ever satisfied. But a wise person who used to sit up here always used to say, when it comes to development, it's a compromise. It's a compromise between the landowner, a compromise between the neighbors, and a compromise between the town. And in my honest opinion, I believe that the landowner in the town has done a lot of compromising. And I you know, as I had said back in March, I'd really hope that a lot of the neighbors would come along and try to compromise. But I don't know what it is, but they just don't feel that, you know, they need to compromise anymore, and they just want to keep dialing it down. And I mean, where do you draw the line? I mean, I think that we've done a really good job of crafting a really responsible ordinance that is going to fit the town of Delafield.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So this section here, duplex or four-family condos, it's what's possible on this land, correct? This is a possibility.
As a condo, yeah.
Yeah. So I just would like to understand why this would fit on the land, knowing that it's all single-family homes.
High Ridge,
All around.
right up the hill. There's condos.
There's a lot of condos in the area.
The bottom, by the.
I mean, High Ridge
But to me,
Condo.
that's
boat
not,
launch.
that's,
I mean, the boat launch has, the condos down there, there's two
Doesn't mean-
sections of condos.
Yeah, I mean, the
again,
Crystal
there's-
Spring condo, I mean, well, and another
I'll drive
thing.
past 3 on my way home. I
Well,
mean,
right, and another thing is, all the comments I've been hearing is you would be made to believe that this kind of density, 1.5 units per acre, is unheard of in the town of Delafield, which is ludicrous and absolutely false. Because you got the Crystal Spring condos, they're at 2.8. You got the High Ridge condos, they're at 2.9. The whole neighborhood, minus the lake properties, is at 1.2. So we're very much in line with the neighborhood, you know, at 1.5. I think we're there.
for us to assume that no one wants to live by the freeway, I think is unfounded. No one is a real estate expert on this team.
Well, I mean, I think 230 units worth of people will want to live there. I mean, I think it's a great place to live.
Steve, you haven't spoken yet. Do you have
Oh, I say plenty.
For last.
No, I agree a lot with what Joe said, and I thought it was well said and well thought out, and it's been my, quite frankly, journey on this as well, and I'm glad to be speaking to all of you about this, because I value your opinion. I think, like Joe said, the two things that we've seen is the density. We continue to hear about the density, and that has come a long way, and it's really at a spot where it is. It's much lower, and it's within a tolerable level, in my opinion, as to what that land can hold to fit the neighborhood. The second thing we hear, and I've heard consistently,
Even if your opinion's wrong, it'll be tested. Right?
it'll be questioned.
No, it'll be studied, right? There'll be a study for it.
yes, it's the water, yes.
Right.
Which is my next point, is, I got an email today. I have, my email in the 2+ years I've been doing this is filled with people asking me about the sewer. Can you honestly say that you've listened to the concerns of the Lake Pewaukee Sanitary District? And the best way I know how to answer that question for all of you about the water, the impact on the lake, the traffic is contained within this document. I really believe that there are protections here that the town has sought that almost no community gets and that we've never sought before. We've gone above and beyond to answer those questions for you. We are not here to say that we are going to guess about the impact to the sewer system. We're going to say that the developer will not only fund a study, with someone of our choosing, by the way, to study the issue, but if there is any concern about it, that they will pay for it to be fixed. And I think that's a big
Or
deal.
reduce units.
Yes, or reduce units. And the lot sizes, I studied quite closely. I mentioned at the Planning Commission the Lake Country Village that the Newman developer referenced. That's not what we're passing today. I recognize that. We're talking about an overlay district. But I studied quite closely because I care about this community and I care about the fit and cohesiveness of it. And what I found were really nice homes. I found on Zillow that they were selling for $600,000. I found families driving through there. I found just married signs. Not all of the sites are 10,000 square feet lots, which I asked it the last time because I was concerned about that. And Kevin answered the question well, that as the development comes through, the town gets the opportunity to look at that and manage that very closely. I'm very concerned about the state level. I'm concerned about higher levels of government taking away the town's local control of zoning. And I think that the town putting forward this overlay district prevents the state assembly, the state senate, from passing bills that remove local control. They passed one last year, AB 608, that said a commercial unit could have 16 units on it, and that really concerns me. I think this keeps the site residential. It keeps it to be family-owned properties, not rented properties, and that's a big deal, and we've come a long way on that. Magley, you had asked about senior living. What are your thoughts on senior living?
I don't think it's an appropriate option either.
There's no senior living in here, correct?
None at all.
Yeah, so I think that's a big,
Yeah, the ordinance does not allow senior living.
that's a big improvement from where we were about 4 months ago. I mean, I also have concerns about the water, obviously, as everyone does, and I've got big concerns if there's a senior living place, and removing that from here is a big deal. And the 250 units we're at now encompasses the entire site. When we were at the 230, excuse me, when there was 250 before, it had one site that was left out. So it's been a further reduction even than it appears, because it encompasses a larger swath.
I think an additional important thing to talk about here too is that this starts a study, right? This doesn't change anything. This doesn't mandate it to be one way or another. And with the results of the study, assuming those pass, there's adjustments, there would be an adjustment to either the infrastructure not paid for on the town's dime or the number of units. However, there still becomes the ability to, the plan that's submitted still needs to pass zoning and the board. And I feel strongly about and committed to, I don't believe that the side, if there's any development there that matches any of this ordinance, that those portions of that development they gotta soften the sides, really, is like the best way for me to put that, right? Like and I know that what Newman presented to us 2 months ago, a month ago, whenever it was, right, was not what is being proposed here. But part of the, my big hard pass on that drawing is they had like 10, 12 side-by-side condo units alongside of Glen Cove Road, right? They had, I forget how many units exactly, but they had double the number of units.
They also were showing 265 units, so we're down to 230
Correct.
units, so.
Right, so again, very helpful. But when we look at, if we're gonna talk about 152 acres, right? That's a massive piece of property. So if we've got a section of this development that is reasonably matching the edges, right, where Brookstone Circle is, where Gulf subdivision at the end of Gulf Ridge is, right? And not be doubling or quadrupling the density across the street, that doesn't make sense to me. That's not something I can get behind. But you've got 152 acres, and when you talk about moving 3 or 4 or 5 or 7 acres into a development, right? I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I don't drive through High Ridge, right? I drive past it every day, right? But I mean, I don't think people are gonna be meandering through a development that they don't live in. And if we've got a reasonable flow from one to the next, where you're talking about a 10,000, some, not all, some 10,000 square foot lots with 40 or 60 undeveloped acres behind it, right? I get that when people are talking about a 10,000 square foot lot is a city lot. I lived on city lots. My wife and I, our first home was on a 11,000, small lot. But those houses are also stacked, right? So you've got a house, a backyard, a house, a road, a house, a backyard, a road, right? When we're talking about a development that has a 10,000 square foot lot that has 40 or 60 acres behind it that's undeveloped and not another row of houses, is a drastically different feel than a 10,000 square foot city lot or city block. I don't, again, I mean,
You're still gonna be in the country and you're still gonna have
Well,
water.
and I think part of that is I commend the team that put in the tree line protections into map 2. I thought that was really, really important, and I think that is a great evolution of this, and it's another aspect to this that really, it gives the town more control over this development than we've ever had any more over a development, and preserving those tree lines in this specific way is really unique, and I think that will benefit not only the future development, but the surrounding area. I'll say, I live in a town, my lot is not 20,000 square feet, it's under that, it's just above 15,000. I have a riding lawnmower. That's my comment.
there's two pieces that people are going to make decisions on and have to and weigh these things on, and it's emotion and logic. And I try to look at this emotionally, try to look at it logically. Emotionally, do I want to have 230 small lots at the end of this street? Yeah, not really. No. Logically,
I'd rather be a farm, I agree.
right.
But
Logically, when we look at
And people can still buy it and keep it a farm if they like to, so.
But with my logic brain is also saying, well, hey, there's real pieces to this staying 100% residential, knowing that it's going to stay 100% residential, and knowing that we're going to have the opportunity to run the studies that people adamant that we're done.
Any additional discussion? There's no additional discussion. The motion and second was to adopt ordinance 2022-04 and an ordinance to create section 17.045.r entitled Planned Development District Number 1 of the Town of Delafield Municipal Code. Now the chair will call for a vote.
I'd like a roll call vote, please.
Okay. Mr. Green.
Supervisor Miller,
No.
Supervisor Kranek,
Aye.
Supervisor Wolfley,
Oh my God. Aye.
Supervisor Michaels,
aye.
Chairman Troy.
Aye. Motion passes 4-1. Now, with that said, let me make clear that our attorney considers the burden of the studies so great on the 5 different individuals that own this property that this ordinance cannot go into effect until the owners of the property sign and accept the burden of the studies. They have 90 days to accept the ordinance. If they do not sign the ordinance within 90 days, the ordinance is killed, and we go back to the development with no ordinance. So, in my opinion, what we're getting for the 3 studies, plus the interconnectivity of the trails and the open space and the control over the property, far exceed the other issues. So, but just please keep in mind that the owners of the property, there's 5 different family members that own all 3 parcels. They have to sign and accept the ordinance that we just adopted for it to go into effect. Otherwise, we're back to no ordinance, and we're back to individual development, selling it off piecemeal with no studies and no other protections.
And potentially
Everything
residential being
gone.
right.
Well, I think the northernmost section of those.
Right, that stays residential.
That's going to be 8 homes.
Right.
Eight homes. So that brings the total density down to 222 on the other acreage, if they accept the ordinance. Or it becomes 1 lot with condos. So,
With a whole lot more than 222.
yeah.
90?
And I would also like to point out that this ordinance has been sent back to the Planning Commission at my request and the board's approval, at least 2, if not 3 times over the last 3 years. Because we have in my opinion, we have listened to the residents and the issues that they raise, and we think this is a responsible residential development. Okay, with that done, we'll move on to item 2B, or 9B, discussion and possible action on the adoption of ordinance 2022-02, an ordinance to repeal and recreate section 12.09 sub 3 and 12 sub 09 sub 4 regarding the critical issue of issuing chicken licenses.
This is what I lose sleep over.
Yes, you'll have
Yes,
it.
thank you. Go ahead, Dan.
So this is an ordinance that we drafted and our attorney reviewed. Essentially gives the power to issue chicken licenses to Tim and I. They have to follow the section 17 of our code and section 12 of our code in order to qualify for a chicken license. Those are black and white standards, and instead of having to bring it to the board and make them wait for a 2-week process potentially, we feel it's something that staff can handle. They meet double setbacks, they have the appropriate coop, and that they're in the right zoning district. So we're just looking for that authority to be able to issue this without having to burden the board to bring.
You listen if any of the neighbors complain. That's part of the process, right?
Yeah, I mean, we
Okay.
haven't had any complaint yet.
Sure.
But typically, if they complain, it's because somebody doesn't have a license and has a chicken and a rooster or
Yeah.
something like that, so.
Okay.
And it can always come to the board.
Yeah, the staff can always pass it to the board if they have questions
I
or
think
don't
that's
feel
great.
comfortable
Yeah,
doing it.
if there's a big uproar,
If
you'll
it's
bring it
outside
here.
of the parameters too, but they want, let's say, a variance, then we'd bring it to you guys for
Yeah.
approval as well.
No, it's kind of ironic that this topic is on our agenda tonight, because I remember sitting on the back old pews of the old town hall, during the 9-10 months that it took the plan commission to draft this chicken ordinance, so it's.
Simpler times.
Yeah, so I will make a motion to approve the adoption of ordinance 22-02, an ordinance to repeal and recreate sections 12.09 paren 3 and 12.09 paren 4 regarding the issuance of chicken licenses in the town of Delafield.
Second.
Go ahead, Joe.
I have a motion and a second to adopt the ordinance, or to adoption of ordinance 2022, and regarding chicken licenses. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Announcements and planning items, Town Board, Tuesday, October 25th at 6:30. I have a conflict as of right now, so I will not be here. Plan Commission meeting is Tuesday, November 1st, 2022 at 6:30. General election is November 8th, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m.
I believe, I have a conflict for the 15th, Mr. Chairman, just so you're aware. I believe that's the budget
Budget
workshop,
hearing
the
in
next one,
November.
so.
Oh, that's the annual meeting, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
That's not on this list, right?
It's not on this list, but
Next one in line, I think.
That's fine. But as long as we have a quorum of 3.
that's why
the
I'm
public hearing.
letting you know.
Yeah, with the people. No, I appreciate that.
Do you require any board members for the planning commission on the 1st?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, Dan?
We don't have any public hearings, so you should be good.
Okay.
Yeah. If there's nothing else, the chair would accept a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We're adjourned. Thank you.